America's favorite pastime isn't baseball or binge-watching TV, it's complaining. And nowhere do the complaints reach Olympic levels of stupidity quite like Walmart. From people accusing the fish of swimming too chaotically to shoppers furious at the laws of physics, these aisles have heard it all. Today we're counting down 69 of the dumbest, weirdest, and most brain-melting Walmart shopper complaints ever recorded. 1. Picture this. A half-eaten rotisserie chicken sits on the customer service counter, a silent testament to a meal interrupted. The reason for its return? Not because it was undercooked or spoiled, but because it failed to provide the expected emotional journey. The woman claimed it didn't make her feel the way it usually does, and when the manager denied a refund for her poultry-induced melancholy, she accused him of chicken shaming, leaving the bird behind as a greasy monument to her feelings. 2. Have you ever felt personally judged by architecture? One man did, lodging a formal complaint that the store's automatic doors were too welcoming. He argued that their swift, cheerful opening was emotionally manipulative, creating a false sense of intimacy. His proposed solution was to reprogram them for a more aloof and indifferent response, in order to better manage the emotional expectations of shoppers from the moment they cross the threshold. 3. In the deli department, a crisis was unfolding, not with the equipment, but with basic hygiene. A customer angrily reported that an employee was washing her hands too much, causing an unacceptable delay in the slicing of her turkey. She genuinely argued that a single wash at the start of a shift should suffice, seemingly operating under the belief that food safety regulations were merely optional guidelines that were getting in the way of her lunch. 4. One man's quest for validation hit a major roadblock: the exit door. He furiously complained that the greeter failed to acknowledge him as he defiantly walked into the store through the designated out-sliding doors. He perceived this lack of a greeting not as a consequence of his own actions, but as a profound personal slight, a violation of an unspoken social contract that he believed should apply even when ignoring giant red letters. 5. Over in the pet aisle, a serious breach of aquatic discipline was reported. A woman demanded to see a manager about the fish, which were, in her words, swimming in a disorganized and chaotic manner. She felt their random patterns set a terrible example for children and earnestly suggested they be trained in aquatic choreography to swim in orderly lines, even offering her weekends to oversee the training herself. 6. The customer service desk has seen it all, but probably not a man attempting to return a used pregnancy test on the grounds that it was defective. When asked for details, he explained that despite his girlfriend using it, the test came back negative. The defect? He was pretty sure she was pregnant, and the test's refusal to confirm his personal hunch was, in his mind, clear evidence of a faulty product. 7. For most, the lighting at Walmart is just bright. For one spiritually attuned gentleman, it was a full-blown psychic assault. He claimed the harsh fluorescent bulbs were clashing with his aura and causing him significant metaphysical distress. He didn't just ask for a different aisle. He demanded the entire supercenter be fitted with dimmer switches so he could shop in a more vibrationally aligned environment. 8. It's not every day someone files a complaint that something real is actually fake. But the garden center was the stage for this philosophical debate. A man insisted the potted plants for sale were fraudulent. His logic? If they were truly real, they would be growing freely in the earth, not imprisoned in plastic pots for capitalist gain. He then sought a manager to report this shocking case of botanical fraud. 9. From the comfort of her own home, hundreds of miles away, one woman launched a crusade. She called corporate to complain that a Walmart in a state she'd never visited didn't stock her preferred brand of artisanal goat cheese. She discovered this injustice online and was preemptively outraged on behalf of the local townsfolk, passionately describing their lack of access to this specific cheese as a regional culinary crisis. 10. The self-checkout machine, a silent witness to our most questionable purchases, was finally accused of having an attitude. A man claimed the machine became judgmental when he scanned a family-sized bag of cheese puffs followed by a single diet soda. He insisted it paused for a fraction of a second too long, a silent digital indictment of his life choices, and he wanted an apology from its programmer. 11. One woman's personal war with laundry led her straight to the customer service desk. She was furious that socks were only sold in pairs. Her logic? She constantly loses one, so she accused Walmart and the entire big sock industry of a massive conspiracy to force consumers to buy more than they need. She left, presumably to draft a strongly worded letter to the shadowy figures controlling the global hosiery market. 12. A demand for a full refund was made at the service desk, but the product being returned was a losing lottery ticket. When the employee looked confused, the man explained with flawless logic, it didn't work. He genuinely believed that the ticket, having failed to produce a winning result, had not fulfilled its primary function. He was trying to return a failed dream as if it were a faulty toaster. 13. An employee was flagged down by a man holding a melting tub of ice cream. The problem wasn't the flavor, but the temperature. It was, he claimed, dangerously cold, having given him an immediate and severe brain freeze. He argued this was a clear product defect, suggesting they should sell it pre-thawed or develop a new line of temperature-regulated frozen desserts for sensitive consumers. 14. Sometimes good service is just too good. A shopper complained that his cashier was excessively cheerful, and her relentless positivity was making him deeply suspicious. He was convinced her good mood was a calculated tactic to distract him while she overcharged him, and he requested an employee with a more realistically miserable demeanor to finish his transaction. 15. A bold attempt to pay for a cart full of groceries with a crisp $500 bill was swiftly rejected. Why? Because it was monopoly money. The man was indignant, arguing that the cashier was being discriminatory against alternative currencies, and that his fake money should be honored because he passed go and collected it fair and square. 16. A squeaky shopping cart is an annoyance for most, but for one man, it was a declaration of war. He didn't just complain about the noise. He claimed it was a form of sonic harassment, deliberately engineered to make shoppers anxious and rush them out of the store. He wasn't just asking for some grease. He was demanding the immediate rollout of a brand new fleet of stealth carts. 17. The produce section became a stage for moral outrage when a woman complained that the shape of the bananas was far too suggestive. She insisted they were inappropriate for a family-friendly environment and demanded they be moved to a less prominent display, or perhaps sold in plain brown bags to shield the eyes of innocent children. You have to ask, at what point do you just stop looking at the fruit and start looking inward? 18. After dropping and shattering a large jar of pickles, a man didn't blame his own clumsy hands. Instead, he blamed physics. His official complaint stated that the store's gravity was aggressively strong and the floor was unreasonably hard. The manager could only apologize for the store's complete and utter compliance with the fundamental laws of the universe. 19. In the clothing department, a customer felt he was being watched, not by an employee, but by a mannequin. He claimed its lifeless plastic eyes were staring at him menacingly and had followed him as he walked past. He demanded that the store either move the mannequin or have it re-educated on proper social etiquette. One can only imagine the HR meeting for that. 20. A man, staring intently at a 2-liter bottle of soda, became enraged. His issue wasn't the price, but the fact that the label also listed the volume in milliliters. He saw this not as helpful information, but as an un-American globalist agenda being forced upon him in the soda aisle. Does he realize his car's engine displacement is probably measured in liters? Or is that a conspiracy for another day? 21. The perfect grid of the store's floor tiles was ruined for one shopper by a single, slightly misaligned tile. But this wasn't just a minor annoyance for his self-diagnosed OCD. He claimed the single imperfection was disrupting the store's entire energy flow and was the direct reason he couldn't find the ketchup. So if you're ever lost, forget the map. The answer might just be a crooked tile. 22. A windy day in the parking lot set the stage for a truly baffling complaint. A woman's car door was caught by a gust of wind, swinging open and dinging the car next to her. Her response? To demand Walmart pay for the damages because they chose to build the store in a windy location. Did she expect them to build a giant dome over the property? 23. One customer took a stand against what he called linguistic fraud in the frozen food aisle. His complaint was against the product jumbo shrimp. He wasn't upset about the size of the shrimp. He was intellectually insulted by the oxymoronic nature of the name itself, calling it a logical fallacy that had no place in a respectable grocery store. 24. Sunlight, the warm giver of life, became a public nuisance in aisle 7. A shopper complained that a ray of sun coming through a skylight was creating a glare on his phone screen. He didn't move. Instead, he suggested that management should do something about the sun, perhaps by tinting the window to his personal specifications or installing a giant umbrella on the roof. 25. A shopper in the frozen foods section approached an employee, pale and shaken. He claimed he had been aggressively shushed by a ghost near the frozen pizzas. He was certain it was a spectral presence, annoyed by his loud humming. He wasn't asking for a discount. He was demanding that the store call in a paranormal investigation team and perform an exorcism. 26. In a stunning display of taking things literally, a tourist from Europe filed a complaint about the store's name, Walmart. He was genuinely disappointed because he had expected to see a giant historical wall similar to the Great Wall of China. You have to wonder what he imagined finding. Archers on the roof? A gift shop selling tiny catapults? Or just a really big wall separating groceries from electronics? 27. The problem apparently was the garden gnomes. Not their price, not their quality, but their attitude. One customer filed a formal report claiming they were looking at her with condescending smugness and creating a hostile shopping environment. She wanted them removed or, at the very least, replaced with gnomes that had more humble and less judgmental facial expressions. 28. A discount for emotional distress was demanded by one woman, not because of anything that happened inside the store, but because it was raining outside. She argued that the miserable weather made her trip an ordeal, and Walmart should compensate her for the inconvenience of having to shop on a gloomy day. She was, in essence, asking for a bravery discount for facing the elements. 29. Have you ever considered the psychological impact of a shopping cart's color? One customer certainly did. He complained that the standard gray was soul-crushing and uninspiring, and it was actively discouraging him from making impulse buys. His suggestion: switch to a vibrant orange to boost shopper morale and, by extension, corporate profits. 30. A man discovered the small, Made in China tag on an American flag he was about to purchase, and a patriotic crisis ensued. He didn't just quietly put it back. He marched it to the front of the store, demanding to know how Walmart could participate in such a geopolitical betrayal. He was a one-man revolution in the seasonal aisle, fighting for textile independence. 31. One woman saw the checkout line not as an inconvenience, but as a missed social opportunity. She complained about the lack of a singles-only checkout lane, a place where unattached shoppers could meet and mingle. She was genuinely upset that the store wasn't actively facilitating her love life alongside the sale of bulk paper towels. 32. The distinct smell of rubber in the auto center is something most people expect. But one shopper described it as an olfactory assault that was clogging his chi. His demand wasn't just for an air freshener. He wanted the entire tire department to be scented with lavender and eucalyptus to create a more spa-like atmosphere for his oil change. 33. The iconic Walmart blue was the target of one man's bizarre complaint. He argued that the sheer amount of blue in the logo, on the vests, and on the signs was emotionally oppressive and was actively making him sad while shopping for paper towels. His solution? The company should rebrand to a more uplifting color, like canary yellow. Just try to picture that for a second. 34. The store's recent reorganization prompted a complaint of a deeply personal nature, the violation of a customer's kinesthetic and spatial memory. In simpler terms, they moved the cereal. But this man claimed the change caused him significant mental anguish because his body was trained to navigate the old layout. He was basically accusing the store of erasing his muscle memory without consent. 35. The brand name Great Value came under fire for being, apparently, far too judgmental. A customer complained that the name inherently implies that all other brands are a bad value. which she found to be a form of brand shaming. She wanted the name changed to something more neutral and less passive-aggressive, like standard option. 36. A woman tried to check out with a single bottle of shampoo, then calmly asked the cashier to mail her the free one later, completely misunderstanding the concept of a buy one, get one free deal. After a moment of stunned silence, the employee had to explain that the deal required both items to be physically present at the same time. She left, muttering about false advertising and the high cost of postage. 37. The upbeat pop music playing over the store's sound system was, for one man, a personal insult. He complained to a manager that the relentless top 40 hits were an attack on his refined musical sensibilities. His demand was simple: switch the store's playlist to progressive rock or classical jazz to create a more intellectually stimulating shopping experience for everyone. 38. A mother's concern for her child's well-being took a strange turn in the toy department. She complained that the aisle was too loud and chaotic, with no designated quiet zone for introverted children. She envisioned a dimly lit corner with puzzles and books, a safe haven from the sensory overload of talking dolls and remote control cars. 39. I need a health potion and I need it now. This was the demand from a man at the pharmacy counter, who had apparently just come from an intense video game session. He was completely serious, believing a real-world pharmacy should stock magical elixirs for instant healing. The pharmacist's offer of aspirin was seen as a complete and utter failure of modern medicine. 40. In the ultimate first-world problem, a customer lodged a complaint about the store's free Wi-Fi. It wasn't the speed or connectivity that bothered him. It was the password. He found Walmart 23 to be uninspired and creatively bankrupt, and felt it reflected poorly on the company's brand identity. He then offered a list of his own, much cooler, password suggestions. 41. The demand was simple. Walmart needed to immediately recall and recalibrate every single ruler in the store. The reason? According to one man, they were all wrong. He had measured his own foot, which he knew to be exactly 1 foot long, and the store's ruler disagreed. He stood there, holding his sneaker up as evidence, ready to dismantle the entire imperial system over a quarter-inch discrepancy. 42. A frantic shopper alerted an employee that the barcodes were attacking him. He wasn't being physically assaulted. He claimed the black and white lines were broadcasting subliminal messages directly into his brain, forcing him to buy kale. He was now pushing a shopping cart lined with tin foil, a makeshift Faraday cage to protect his groceries and his mind from the sinister whispers of inventory management. 43. This store is causing me painful nostalgia, a man complained, holding a can with a rollback sticker. He argued that seeing prices from the good old days was a cruel reminder of his youth and financial prime, causing him genuine emotional distress. He wasn't asking for the prices to be raised. He was asking for emotional hazard pay to compensate for his trip down a bittersweet memory lane. 44. An attempt was made to return a get well soon card. The reason for the return wasn't a damaged envelope, but a breach of contract. The card's recipient, unfortunately, had not gotten well. The customer argued that the card made a specific promise it failed to keep, and he wanted his money back for the faulty product. He left, vowing to take his complaint to the highest levels of the greeting card industry. 45. The circular shape of the frozen pizzas was, according to one football fanatic, a fundamental design flaw. He cornered a stalker with hand-drawn blueprints, explaining that pizzas for game day should be shaped like footballs for optimal aerodynamic flight from the kitchen to the couch and thematic consistency. You have to admire a man whose commitment to the sport extends to applied geometry in the freezer aisle. 46. A customer slammed a carton of milk on the counter, not because it was spoiled, but because of the date it was set to expire. It was a Tuesday. He claimed every major disaster in his life had occurred on a Tuesday, and the milk's chosen expiration date was a deliberate personal attack orchestrated by the entire dairy industry. He then demanded to see the milk's birth certificate. 47. One woman stood motionless in the aisle, arms crossed, staring at her shopping cart with utter contempt. Her complaint? It didn't have a motor. She was genuinely offended by the archaic and physically demeaning expectation that she had to push it herself. She wanted to know when Walmart would be rolling out the firmware update for self-driving carts. 48. An intense argument erupted at the electronics counter. A woman was demanding that the store price match a blender she saw on a popular sitcom. A character had bought it for $20. The employee's patient explanation about the difference between a fictional television show and a legally binding advertisement was met with accusations of elitism and not believing in TV. 49. The canned soup aisle was the scene of a heartbreaking tragedy, at least for one shopper. She complained that the single, lonely tomato pictured on the label of the tomato soup was triggering her abandonment issues. Her proposed solution was for the brand to redesign its labels to feature happy, smiling cartoon vegetables holding hands in a show of communal support. 50. During the holiday season, a man began frantically trying to interrogate a large animatronic talking Santa. He was convinced it was a government surveillance drone, whispering state secrets in between ho-ho-hos. The manager arrived to find the man unplugging and plugging the Santa back in, shouting, "I know you can hear me in there," at a plastic beard. 51. A coupon from the year 1998 was presented at checkout with the confidence of a winning lottery ticket. When the cashier explained it was over 2 decades expired, the man was furious. He pointed to the text "good through" and argued that this was merely a suggestion, not a law of physics. He was accusing the store of attempting to unilaterally alter the flow of time. 52. One customer unfolded a large world map he'd pulled from the school supplies section and spread it across the service desk. His complaint was grave. The map, which depicted all 7 continents and major oceans, was a complete fraud. Why? Because it failed to show the location of his specific street. He felt personally erased from global geography, a cartographical insult of the highest order. 53. "The meat is angry," a woman whispered to a butcher who just paused, holding a tray of steaks. She insisted the cold temperature of the meat department was putting the beef into a negative emotional state, and she could literally taste the resentment in her T-bones. Her solution was not to adjust the thermostat, but to provide tiny, custom-fit wool sweaters for the packaged steaks. 54. A shopper demanded to be paid an appearance fee for her time in the store. She had spent a full hour in the chip aisle, paralyzed by what she called the psychological torture of overwhelming choice. She argued that since her struggle was so dramatic and time-consuming, it qualified as entertainment, and she should be compensated like a contestant on a reality TV show. 55. A man reported a major fire hazard brewing in the bakery section. The source of this impending doom? The birthday candles. He was dead serious, arguing that selling flammable wax sticks with wicks was an open invitation to citywide arson. He demanded a full recall of every candle to be replaced with safer, non-flammable battery-operated LED versions for the good of public safety. 56. A man brought a smoke detector to the service desk, not because it was broken, but because he felt it was incomplete. He was genuinely angry that a device designed to detect smoke didn't also have a feature to put out the fire. He was picturing a tiny sprinkler system inside, and its absence was, in his mind, a shocking oversight in product design. 57. The problem wasn't a product, but a missing service. A woman complained that the store had no one on staff who was a certified dream interpreter. She had a very confusing dream about buying a cantaloupe the night before, and felt it was Walmart's corporate responsibility to help her analyze its deeper meaning, since the store was a key setting in her subconscious drama. 58. A customer whose shopping cart was accidentally dinged by a stocking trolley didn't ask for a new cart. Instead, he demanded to know if the cart had legal representation. He argued that the cart was the victim of a hit and run and was entitled to compensation for pain and suffering, and he refused to move until the manager provided the name of the cart's attorney. 59. In what might be the most bizarre HR complaint ever, a woman demanded a different cashier because her current one, a man, was stealing her oxygen. She claimed that, as a woman, she was more in tune with nature and that the male cashier's aggressive breathing was disrupting the delicate process of her personal photosynthesis. Yes, she said photosynthesis. 60. A somber-looking couple attempted to return an unused coffin. When the manager, handling the situation with extreme delicacy, inquired why, the man replied in a deadpan voice, "Plans changed." He then refused to elaborate, leaving everyone to ponder the series of events that leads to someone not needing a coffin they've already purchased. For now. 61. The baby carrots in the produce section were the target of a full-blown moral crusade. A shopper accused Walmart of promoting child labor by forcing infant vegetables into the workforce before they had a chance to grow up. She stood there, demanding the immediate liberation of the baby carrots, perhaps to be released into a nearby field to reach their full potential. 62. You've heard of slippery floors, but what about a floor that's offensively flat? A man complained that the perfectly level, polished concrete was unnatural and disorienting for the human body. He insisted the store should install gently rolling hills and a few strategically placed valleys throughout the aisles to better simulate a natural walking terrain. 63. After a pleasant and lengthy conversation with his cashier, a man confidently attempted to pay for his $50 purchase with a single, heartfelt compliment. He was genuinely shocked when the cashier insisted on actual money, arguing that his positive verbal affirmation should be considered a valid form of currency. The negotiation, unsurprisingly, failed. 64. An elderly gentleman stared at a can of beans with a look of pure betrayal. His complaint: the expiration date, set for 2 years in the future, was unrealistically optimistic and was setting him up for profound disappointment. He was, in essence, complaining that the canned goods would outlive him, and he found that to be in very poor taste. 65. A man bypassed the entire management structure and demanded to speak directly to the store's legal consciousness. He didn't want a manager. He was trying to serve a handwritten lawsuit to the building itself, which he claimed was a sovereign corporate entity that had personally wronged him by having a leaky roof over the pet food aisle. He was ready to take a building to court. 66. A woman tried to return a brand new, perfectly functioning flat-screen TV. Her reason was chillingly simple. She didn't like the people living inside it. She believed the actors in the shows were tiny, real people trapped in the television, and she found their family dynamics to be toxic and unpleasant. She wanted to exchange them for a TV with a nicer, more supportive family inside. 67. The large clock on the wall became the subject of an existential meltdown. One customer began shouting that the clock was moving too fast and was personally stealing moments from his life. He wasn't saying it was inaccurate. He was accusing it of accelerating the very fabric of time within the store's walls and demanded a manager slow it down before it was too late. 68. In a moment of pure, unfiltered chaos, a man walked up to the sporting goods counter, placed a single, unfired bullet on the glass, and asked for a refund. When the stunned employee asked what was wrong with it, the man leaned in and whispered, "It missed." He then stood back, as if that explanation should be enough for any reasonable person. 69. And finally, the ultimate complaint. A man looking to buy a telescope for his son refused to complete the purchase until the night manager could provide definitive, undeniable proof that the moon was real. He was convinced it was a hologram projected by the government, and he wasn't about to waste $89 on a telescope to look at a high-tech light show. Because the burden of proof for the entire Apollo program now apparently rests on the shoulders of a Walmart manager in Ohio. So we've just survived 69 Walmart complaints so ridiculous they make flat earthers sound like Nobel Prize winners. But now it's your turn. Drop a comment with the single dumbest complaint you've ever heard in your life. Was it from a customer, a coworker, or maybe even you? Don't be shy. We're here for the chaos. Smash that like button if you laughed at least once, and subscribe if you want proof that humanity still has new depths of stupidity left to explore.